Hello and welcome to episode 43 of Think Big with Michael Zellner. All positive, no politics. My guest today is Natalie Boyatt. Natalie is the founder and CEO of Bevee, and Bevee makes high-end consumer goods that make doing life easier. She's going to tell her story today about her amazing invention. And I can't wait to have it on here and share it with everybody. She was in the pharmaceutical sales industry for 6 years before founding her own company, and she has a Bachelor of Science degree in advertising from the University of Memphis. Natalie, welcome to the show.
Hi, Michael. Thank you for having me. So excited to be here.
My pleasure. Thank you. So tell us something interesting about yourself most people don't know.
Oh, gosh. Thanks for the warning. Let's see. I think probably that I actually have a really, really big heart. And it's one that sometimes has caused me to get a little overextended in everything I do because I want to help everyone.
Right.
So, that's one thing I've had to learn starting my own business is that I've had to learn to say no. And that's really, really hard for me. So
I understand. I'm the exact same way. So I understand where you're coming from for sure. You know, Natalie, you were born and raised in Memphis. What fun things do you remember most about your early childhood?
So part of where I am today is because of my parents. I have literally the most wonderful parents. My father's a veterinarian and he actually raised us to, we see a problem. We don't say, oh, that's a problem. We say, well, what's the solution? And so I have lots of fun memories just brainstorming with him since I was a little girl. And I have a big love for animals. And so some of my best memories would be he would get some sort of exotic animal into his practice, and he would call my mom and say, bring Natalie up here, she needs to see this cougar, or this whatever, this crazy exotic bird. And so those were some of my most fun memories, was just getting to have that wonderful environment of two very loving parents. And I wouldn't be here today without them. So and of course I was a kid of the 80s, so we grew up on microwaves and fast food, so
Right.
I don't think I would touch any of that nowadays, but I'm still alive. So but I do
Did you
have fond memories of that.
did you have animals at the house too growing up?
Oh yeah, everything I could talk him into. So I never did get the Palomino horse, but I did get a lot of the domestic stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, I've always
Um,
grown up around dogs, and I have 3 miniature schnauzers now, so I know about the love of animals. Yeah,
yeah,
unconditional love.
it is you're right. It is an unconditional love. And in fact, a friend the other day said, the reason why we cry so much when a dog passes is it's the only time they ever break your heart. And I was like, oh
Oh
my
my
God,
God.
that is
Oh
such
my
a good
God.
thing.
I
It's so
know that is
true.
right. That is so
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you started working at the age of 16 at the Gap, and you worked there throughout college. Um,
Okay.
being in
Someone's been on my LinkedIn or somewhere you've been digging.
yeah, being in retail sales, you know, what important things did you learn about developing a good work ethic and dealing with people at such a young age?
I say that if you're trained, Gap trained, you can sell anything. If we can add on a belt and a pair of socks to your jean purchase, we know how to sell. But part of that is also learning to deal with different personalities, because you never knew what was going to walk in the door. It could be, and you had to adjust your sales approach, your just in general approach, your small talk, everything had to pivot and change based on that person's personality. So it really helped teach me how to get along with any personality type, and it came in to really benefit me when I got into pharmaceuticals, just dealing with different physicians and different doctor types. And I was able to, some that would have possibly offended me, I was able to pivot my response and my approach to them, and so it still serves me to this day 100%.
Good atmosphere in the Gap too, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you're working in there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It was good. I'm glad to be done with retail, but it was great for the time that it served me. So it was preparing me for this.
And I saw where you developed a few special friendships from that time. I believe you recently just got together with a few of your friends that you guys worked together at the Gap recently and celebrated. It was a
Yeah,
guy and a girl.
in fact, one of them, he was my former manager. And then actually the girl she's still my best friend to this day. So I just got back from seeing her in Dallas. So yeah, I've stayed tight with a lot of people that I met, in those pivotal late teenage, early 20 years. So yeah.
That's awesome. You
Thank
went to
you.
college, at the University of Memphis, and you got your degree in advertising, as I mentioned, but you didn't just go to school. You were immensely involved and worked extremely hard. You were in the philanthropy chair, Alpha Delta Pi, for the Ronald McDonald House, part of 2 different honor societies, a member of the Dean's List and the National Dean's List, student ambassador, and you even had a leadership scholarship. Even being involved and part of all those great things, and you're also working at the Gap too, you still graduated with a 3.6 GPA. How were you able to manage your time so well?
I am incredibly high energy, more so than most people. So, for me, a busy mind and a busy body is how I function best. In fact, I have to do a daily yoga or Pilates practice just to help kind of calm me down, even to this day, because if not, then I get really wound up. So it just, to me, it was, again, I go back to, the last, 40 years of plus of my years of my life have been preparing me for this brand that I'm now creating. And so for me to be doing 10 different things at once, it's all I know. And I wouldn't have it any other way. It's how I was born. So
I was brought up, I sold Cutco knives when I was in college. And one of the things that our managers told us was, if you want to get a job done, you give it to a busy person,
mhm,
because a busy person will find time to get it done. You
that's
agree?
right. 100%, 110% agree. Yep.
Your favorite quote is, quote, "It is better to live your own destiny imperfectly than to live in imitation of somebody else's life with perfection." What does that mean to you?
Well, I have a lot of new ones since then, but a lot of new ones. I think that I've lived such a full life, good and bad. And, my mom and I have a saying that when most people see a mountain, they walk around it. I saw the mountain and chose to scale the north face without a harness. So, going back to that quote, it really is. I've lived an inauthentic life to perfection, and I was miserable. And now I know what it's like to begin living a full life that is authentic. I'm not perfect. And the beauty about the imperfections is what makes it worth the journey. And, I had someone asked me a couple weeks ago if I could stop what I'm doing right now and win the Powerball tomorrow, would I do it? And I said, absolutely not. Because it's not about the finish line. It really is about the journey. And it's taken me a long time to understand that. And I think it's because now I'm starting to see the fruits of my labor for the last 7 years start to come to fruition. And it's so wonderful to see now little victories turning into big victories, turning into ginormous victories when there was very many years of nothing.
Right.
So I wouldn't want to be anywhere else right now.
You worked with a few different companies, and then you got into pharmaceutical sales. What led you to that decision?
So I got married really young and found myself getting divorced in my early 30s with a very young daughter. I had not really worked outside of the Gap. Blessed to have the college degree, get the college degree. And I tried to start and get up on my feet and start my career. And, I just couldn't catch up. I just couldn't get to the point where I was able to, make those businesses grow fast enough and live on them at the same time. And, as my best friend calls me a dreamer, she said, it's time to start trying to work to live. You have got to start, or living to work. You have to start working to live. And so after trying 3 or 4 years of trying to pull stuff off the ground, she said, girlfriend, let's get a job. Get a job. You got to get a job. And I had been fighting corporate America my whole life because I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a true blue entrepreneur. And finally, I said, okay, it's time for me to make a living. And I had an opportunity to get into pharmaceutical sales. And, magically, I found myself very low entry, but at least I had a paycheck, I had benefits, a company car, so I had to kind of sacrifice, what I felt inside of me was who I really was in order to put other things in priority, which was, my daughter and my life. And so I kind of thought that maybe my goal of of creating was done. And I had been creating my whole life, you know, writing books, screenplays, making films. I almost created another surgery suit for dogs. That's a whole nother story. So,
Wow.
but but I had to be a grown up, and it was a hard decision. And I was very blessed to be in dermatology, which are wonderful doctors, and I met some amazing people. And you know, 2 months into the gig is when the idea of this little thing called Bevee came my way. So that's the reason why I needed to get there to find the idea.
You know, you worked really hard in that industry, you know, for 6 years. And, you know, outside of your invention, you know, what main things did you learn from that experience that you're able to use in everyday life?
Oh wow. I learned a lot of good and a lot of bad. As good as that industry was to me, it was also very bad. My first boss was horrible. And she tried to put me in her box, which I realized that her box is not my box and my box is not her box.
Right.
Doesn't mean one's right or wrong. And so, right away I learned some really valuable lessons on how I want to be as a leader, and how I can also coach and teach others. It also taught me, I had never traveled by myself. I'd never gotten on a plane by myself until I got into corporate America.
Wow.
So, in job number 2, I would literally get a rental car to Nashville, work there, fly to Atlanta, work there, fly to Florida, work there, fly to Mississippi, work there, and fly home. And that became like a norm for me. So, I was grateful that now I can take off somewhere to go to a pitch to a company in a city I've never been to, and I don't think twice about it. So, there's a lot of growing up that happened during that time in pharma. And I also worked with my last company that I worked with, the upper management, they just really treated us like numbers and forgot that we were people. And that was during the pandemic.
Right.
And it really taught me how to treat others and how to be sympathetic. And, the people that work underneath me and with me will never be treated like a number. I mean, they will always be a person, and they will always be someone that I care for, not just from what they can do for the business, but who they are as an individual. So I make a really good point to get to know anyone that I work with at this point. So lots of good learning lessons. I'm grateful for my time. I'm grateful for the product idea, but more importantly, I'm grateful to be done.
Absolutely.
So,
Where
yeah.
does that drive come from in you?
I've always been a fighter. I think that it takes a really special individual to be an entrepreneur. We do things that most people would not do. In fact, I had someone ask me recently, if I'd known everything that I was going to have to go through, would I do it again? And I'm not sure I could. There's been way more scary, lonely, hurry up and wait, not sure if I'm going to make it, not sure if the safety net that I removed is going to work. I mean, there's a lot of that. So it takes a really special individual. And, I can't say where it comes from. I just know that this is how I was born. This is, we all have gifts,
Right.
and, some are big, some are small, some realize theirs, some don't. I didn't quite realize mine until I was well into my 40s, and and now I can't stop it. Now it's just, this all makes sense. It was, my whole life was spent building a puzzle, and then now suddenly the puzzle pieces are all fitting together. And I wasn't meant to do anything else. And so, here I am.
Awesome. You know, just 2 months into your pharmaceutical industry job, you know, a 10-drink coffee order from Starbucks transformed, you know, everything for you.
Yeah.
Please tell our audience about what happened that day and what was born from it.
Yeah. So I got a call from one of my offices, who's on the 3rd floor, mind you, of an office building, and said, "Hey, we want to order Starbucks." Great. This was before the mobile app day, so I had to actually call the order in. This was my first coffee delivery, which, if you're in pharmaceuticals, you're usually delivering coffees 2-3 times a week, or
Right.
smoothies, some kind of drink, because it's a good way to make the staff happy and get a few minutes with the doctor. So I walked in, and the barista slid basically these 2 little cardboard drink carriers, 5 of them, one in the middle, to me, and I'm looking at it thinking, okay, how am I going to get these in my car and, into my office?
Right.
So I actually had a gentleman help me get them to the car, put them in the floorboard, drove to the office, and, keep in mind, I'm in a skirt and heel or dress and heels with a work bag. So I have each one in my hands, and someone lets me into the elevator, and I get to the hallway of the office. And when I get there, I realize the door into the waiting room pulls out. So I can't use my elbow and my hips to pull it into there. So I had no choice but to slide down, put one of the drink carriers down, open the door, hook my leg around it, and slowly work my way in there. And literally the whole waiting room staring at me like, what is this girl doing? And I was mortified. I don't know how I didn't spill them. So, and I still remember this clearly. This is 2015. I get in my car and immediately I could see a product. And I'm like, going home, Amazoning it, gonna solve all my problems. And I couldn't find anything. And I checked with all my rep friends. They're like, oh, just buy a plastic bin. And I'm like, well, that doesn't solve the problem because you need a free hand.
Right.
And so, and I even called my skeptical friend, the one that called me a dreamer, and said, what do you think about this? And she said, I'd buy one.
Oh, wow.
And so, it was like, okay, here we go. So I found an engineer and a very like rough engineer, just someone that could kind of take my drawings. And I knew a friend that had patented a product. So I got the name of his patent attorney and called him up. Didn't realize that he was the head of Baker Donaldson up in Nashville, which is a very prestigious firm.
Right.
And, he does like medical devices. And here I am with this little drink carrier idea. And he almost laughed me off the phone. He said, look, I'll look into it, but, don't hold your breath. And about 3 months later, he said, look, I think we can get this. I think you found a needle in the haystack. So off we went, and it's been building and growing ever since. So lots of great stories, lots of really cool stories about how these doors have just continue to open. So until here we are. So
great story. And I do not believe in coincidence. So that day,
yeah,
the way it happened, how it happened was supposed to happen.
well, if you will humor me for a minute, I will tell you a really cool story. It's
Absolutely.
my favorite
Take your
story
time. Please do.
about Bevee. So fast forward roughly 8 months later, and my patent attorney called me. And the way patents work, you can get a provisional, which you probably know is patent pending. That basically gives you 12 months to decide if you want to file for a utility patent. A lot more expensive, a lot more. And so he called me and he said, are you planning on going all the way with this? And I'm, of course, and he said, let's skip the provisional. Don't go to the patent pending, just go straight for the patent. A lot more expensive. And I am entry level at this point, like
Right.
Pharma rep. Like I'm barely getting by, but barely getting by. And I knew that meant, okay, that's money not going into savings, not going into a college fund for my daughter. And I don't even remember saying it. I just said, okay, let's do it. And I got off the phone and I just remember saying to myself, and this became my first mantra, was if it's meant to be, just let the doors keep opening. And
Love
so
that.
I went from there to my mailbox before making dinner. And in my mailbox was a magazine addressed to me called Real Simple. It's kind of an everything women's magazine. I don't get magazines. I haven't in years gotten a magazine. And I thought, this is so strange. And by the way, I've never gotten another issue, just this one. So I go in the house and I say, maybe I should just flip through it and see if there's something to this. And I come across this article about this female entrepreneur, and she'd been in corporate America and gone hiking with her mom in Arizona. Well, her water bottle kept getting hot. And so she went back home and created a better one, quit her job, cashed in her 401k, and she had just landed a national contract with Starbucks, and the name of the company was Swell, and which is a major brand now.
Right.
And it was like she was speaking to me, like, your doors are going to open. And I still have the article. I cut it out, and it's really interesting. I told that story last year on our Instagram account, and I tagged her in it, and she responded and she said, I love your story. May your doors keep opening. And it was just like, just another, yeah. So I've had lots of little cool things like that that have just been just wonderfully magical in this whole process. It's
And
and honestly, it's what's kept me going.
you'll keep that article the rest of your life.
I will. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have it in a frame. You'll have it in an office, wherever you're going to have it. You'll have it up there, and it's always going to remind you of how you got started.
Yep. I love it. It's fun
Awesome.
now.
I'm going to let you show everyone the Bevee carrier and demonstrate it for us and explain how it works, please.
Sure. Okay. So I knew I wanted something, first off, that was obviously versatile, but I wanted it to look good and be compact. Because if I were going to be carrying one in my car as a farmer rep, I needed to be able to tuck it away. And so, so this is actually Bevee, and you can see it's about 3 inches when shut. I'm showing you the branded one because one of the industries that has really taken to this is the promotional products industry,
Right.
because it's basically a walking billboard. So we can put logos on either side of it. One of the challenges that I had is, and I'll show you this as an example. This is an early day prototype, and you can kind of see this sucker's really big.
Yeah.
So this would have been a standard cup holder, like in your car's 3 inches. This is how big it would have had to have been. So you can kind of see the difference between this and this. So it's half the size, right? So my biggest challenge was, okay, how do we create an interior that would actually hold drinks at half the height? And I'll show you this. You can see, you can probably hear this, that up and down. That's the second patent. That's a locking mechanism. So when you push down on it, it releases it and allows the handle to drop. And then you open it as such. And then when you pull the handle back up, you're gonna hear it lock again. And then that's gravity holding it so that it's a full, it creates basically a tray. And you can kind of see we've got 12 drinks, and then you've got little spaces here for like coffees or sugars or creamers or your car keys, whatever. We purposely did not make it to fit a cell phone because we don't think cell phones and liquid is a good idea.
Right.
And I show people this. This is the most, I guess, popular feature of it. I've got one with 12 bottled waters in it. It's a little heavy, but I'll do my best to show you guys. So you can see this, and I'm going to swing it. You can see the water bottles are not going to fall out of it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So that was one of the biggest challenges we had was, okay, how do I have an interior that will hold a drink, you know, so snug like that? And so we messed around with foam for 2 years. That seemed to make sense, kind of like a memory foam, but we couldn't get it to compress good enough, and we couldn't get it to look right. And so we had to do a lot of work trying to figure out what does this look like underneath here? This is a really pretty silicone, and it gives and stretches, but there's so much engineering underneath here. And part of that was what took so long. And, you know, trying to figure out, okay, how many drink sizes can we fit? And one of the things we noticed is that the slim cans wouldn't fit. They were wobbly, and you can see this is a Red Bull, but you can see it's super wobbly. So what we did was we developed little inserts. And so you just pop the drink in the insert, pop it in there, and you can see now it holds.
Wow, so smart.
Yeah. It'll hold pretty much everything. Like here's a beer, it'll hold those nice and snug, and it'll hold just about anything except one of these ginormous, like 32-ounce drinks, right? But I did have a guy from a Canadian beverage company tell me, he's like, you've solved 90%. We're good. So yeah, so we have actually the 6th cup that's going to come out next year. It's already in engineering phase. So, and then I've got 4 other products in the pipeline, but this is the one that's kind of kicked it all off. And we did a trade show in July with the promotional products industry in Chicago, and they named us one of the hottest new products for 2022.
I saw that. That's awesome.
We're getting a lot of attention from like hospitality, beverage companies, you know, arenas, airlines, car companies. I've got one right now at a Hilton in Sandestin. They're using it on the beach right now. And she's like, you have saved us. So it's starting to become fun. So
You've talked about, being an entrepreneur, and one of the quotes I love, and I know you've talked about this a little bit, but I want to read it. It says, a born entrepreneur. When the world sees problems, I see solutions, unquote. And you spent, it's like you talked about, 7 years in the development of this product. So many times that you thought about, is this worth it? Do I keep going? Maybe I need to give up. This isn't going to happen. There's something obviously inside of you, that wanted you just to continue this dream and everything, to keep going for it. Right.
right. 100%. I can't possibly describe it, but it's a knowing. It's a knowing. And I could see the end result so clearly. And, part of, chasing a dream or manifesting a dream or manifesting a new life, which is what I did, is not knowing how and the wheres. It's really just knowing and letting the rest of that unfold as it's supposed to. And it took me a lot of years to just accept that. And, and part of it was I knew that I didn't want to go back to the world I was in. I felt so fish out of water being in corporate America. And it wasn't my journey. It was part of my journey, but it wasn't my journey. And so that constant, and look, at the end of the day, I knew worst case scenario, what is the worst that can happen? I go back to corporate America. Right. I mean, I started my career at 37 years old in pharma. So worst case scenario, I go back to it. So, I think too, sometimes the reason why more people are not like me is because they get tripped up on the in-between. They see the end result, they see the finish line, and it looks great, but there's a million miles in between that. And that can get daunting, and a lot of it is, I didn't know how big I was taking this on. I didn't know. I thought I'd create a product, get it made, go sell it. I didn't think about all the little nuances that go into actually creating something. I mean, it's everything from, having a CRM system set up and making sure how to create UPC labels, and then you have to have package design, and then you have to have a marketing team and figure out how you're going to brand it and pick out brand colors. And I'm just like, I just want to create products. So, and in fact, one of my partners said, look, you don't have to be perfect at everything. Just be good enough at most things. And so I've tried to accept the fact that that's not my wheelhouse. That's not my wheelhouse. That's not my wheelhouse. But you find people that are. And, I tell my manufacturer there in Utah, and I said, look, treat me like a kindergartner, because I'm going to ask so many questions, and just know that I have no idea what I'm doing, but I trust you. So, and I will tell you, I'm so impressed by the people that I've met who genuinely just want to help. It's blown my mind. There is a lot of good out here, a lot. And in these day and ages when there's so much bad, it is refreshing for me to sit here and say, I am so blessed by the generosity of some of the doors that people are trying to open to some of the biggest Fortune 500 companies, like right now. And it all because they just want to help, and so I think that's a testament to a lot of people. And it's something that I've taken and try to take into what I'm doing is, if I can help you, I will. I'll help you until there's a time where I'm too busy to, but if worst case scenario, I'll at least point you in the right direction if I can. So, because I mean, I wouldn't be where I am without it.
Right.
I've probably had 100 people touch this product over the last 7 years just to try and help. And amazing. I'm officially glad to be out of prototyping. I have had more prototypes for this product than you can just imagine. So it's nice to have product.
So your first product is done.
Yep.
You're getting, a lot of press, not only locally, but all over the country, including a great article that was in U.S. News and World Report. What has overall this amazing experience been like for you?
It's a little bit surreal, because for 6.5 years, this was just my baby that very few people knew about, and in May, it's called WeBack. It's a women's owned certification. I got WeBack certified. So I'm what you call a diversified supplier. And I got certified in May. And in fact, the Southeast director, he said, look, we're having our trade show in 2 weeks in Atlanta. And at the time, I only had a prototype. Looks the same, but you don't put weight in it because it's not made of plastic. And he said, buy a day ticket, go down there and pitch it. It's all these major companies looking to work with, diversified suppliers. So I went down there, and this is the first time that any really strangers would have even seen the product. And I mean, it was Hilton, Marriott, Caesars, MGM, major pharmaceutical companies, all the car manufacturers, Target. And I called my best friend and I said, I can't do this. And she goes, you get out there and you do it. You be confident in your product and what you're doing. And so, I just started pitching one after another, after another, and after another. And it was unanimously people going just bananas over it. Just even Target, like, this is a perfect brand for us. And it just, by the end of the day, I was talking with a buyer at Ford, and he basically was like, it's brilliant. And I just started crying.
Wow.
And I said, I'm so sorry. This is just a really overwhelming day for me. And, he's like, I think you need a hug. And I'm like, I think I need one too. And so, it's been kind of a whirlwind ever since then. So I'm not so caught up in, where this is going and how it's going to go. I just want to create products. That's my favorite part of this whole journey, is just watching the process of working with designers and sharing what's up in here and them taking it and turning it into something, and so as far as everything, it's what comes with it. I am excited to move on to the second product. I'm not gonna lie. I've spent my time with this one. We're good. So I'm looking forward to developing the 6-cup. And then I have, like I said, I have 4 others. They're all in the beverage industry except for one. So that one, he's kind of out there on his own. But that's my favorite part. If all this success comes with it, then great. If it keeps me out of corporate America, I'm happy.
Right.
And helps pay for my daughter's college tuition. But
Right.
that's been probably one of the most exciting parts of all this, is that there's nothing that she thinks she can't do. She started this journey with me when she was 7. She's now almost 15 and has been just neck and neck right beside me. And it's really cool for her to think, okay, she wants to be a writer and she doesn't think she can't. And, this past summer I watched her, she confided that she'd started writing a novel. I'm like, what 14-year-old writes a novel? But that's what she grew up with, is this crazy mom of hers.
Good kind of
So,
crazy.
yeah, I think so. And it's been really exciting. Like I said, from being in college days, giving back's really important to me. We're committed to One Wish with Make-A-Wish Mid-South this year, in our first year. Hopefully it'll be more. But I have 2 foundations I want to start eventually that are pretty near to me. So that's kind of down the road. And I started writing my life story when I got divorced, 2010. And I really thought it was going to be kind of a story that might speak to fellow divorcee moms who have to kind of start over their life again. That's really why I started it. I'm 7 years later, 90,000 words into it, and it has taken quite a different turn than I thought back in the day. So I'm excited to start pushing that as well next year. So got a lot of fires going on, but that's the only way I know how to roll.
How do you balance life and work?
I've gotten really good with turning this off. Again, the yoga, Pilates helps. It forces me to turn it off. In fact, I asked a friend once, I said, she owns her own business. And I said, do you ever stop thinking about it? And she said, no. Well, now I know why she said no, because I do. I wake up at night thinking about it. And it's not easy to turn it off, but it's a different turn off because I love what I'm doing. And so I love talking about it. Sitting here with you right now, this is fun for me. This is not work.
Right.
And And, I remember my father telling me when I was young, because he loves what he does. He's still a practicing veterinarian and he's almost 80. And he said, if you really get to do something that you love, it will never for one day feel like work. And it is work, but it's a different kind of work. It's just different. And I think for me, I don't necessarily need to turn it off. I do know how to redirect it, but I get a lot of joy from helping someone else. And it makes me smile to know if I've paved a path before others, because trust me, this path has been paved long before me,
Right.
by others. And I'm very big about living that authentic life. I really, really am. It's you got one journey. How do you want to live it?
You just recently had your first video on TikTok go viral. Tell us
Yes.
about that.
Gosh, so I hired a brand manager to really launch the brand, and she's done a phenomenal job. I mean, I'm going to put her in my pocket and keep her. And so we started out actually doing more Instagram stuff. And I'll never forget the first time I saw one of our reels reach 5,000 people. Like, I about fell on the floor. And my daughter actually said, "Mom," she's like, "that's nothing. You need to be on TikTok." And of course, I don't, that's
Right.
like out of my wheelhouse. And so I talked with my brand girl and I said, "Look, let's start getting some of these, reels from Instagram and TikTok." And in fact, my daughter wrote a hashtag template that we could use that would help us get into the algorithm, if you will. And so, yeah, we got into the algorithm. And so I learned really fast to turn off my notifications on my phone. So, oops, I'm losing my headphone. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, I where it went. So I watched it go from, 50, 100,000, 150,000 views, 150. I mean, it just kind of skyrocketed, and the views are sitting right around 300,000, but it wasn't so much that, it was like the shares and the comments and the saves. It just was incredible to, watch how people were responding to it. And these were total strangers,
Right.
and it was cool for them to see my vision for it. And then honestly, the only thing that really got any kind of backlash was, and I'm not surprised, was a little bit of the price point. But then we were having strangers come to our defense for the price point. So it was like, okay, good. We don't have to deal with any of this. So
Right.
yeah, it was really fun watching it. It just, I'll tell you what it's been, Michael, is it's just been like consistently affirmation, 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 affirmation. And, it did take me a long time. I quit my job last March. So I've been about a year and a half job free on the Bevee payroll. And, I pulled out every last safety net, and, and that's very scary.
Sure.
And, there were many times where I'm like, but what if everyone hates it? But what if it fails? But what if no one wants to buy it? I mean, and look, I heard once, I think it was Mark Cuban maybe, and he said, as an entrepreneur, if you're not a little scared all the time, you're really not a genuine entrepreneur. And he's right. And so it's been really amazing just in the last couple of weeks for me to say, you know what? I have something. I officially have something. And it's been great, because it was the last little insecurity inside of me that was just holding on to the fear, which, the fear of the unknown. But
Right.
at this point, I think I've gotten enough confirmation that we're good. So now I'm just having fun with it. Doing
So
things like this.
absolutely. About a month ago, you drove your van to Chicago to do your first trade show, which you talked about. I know that had to be really exciting for you, but something else happened when you pulled into the parking garage at McCormick Place. What was that?
So when you do these trade shows, they typically give you a table, a table, they give you the pipe and the drape, and then they give you the carpet. Well, we had already decided we wanted an all white booth. I had it in my head. I knew exactly what I wanted, which meant I had to drive up a 10 by 10 piece of white carpet, because the carpet they provided was brown and red checked. It was awful. It looked terrible. So I had to rent a commuter van, I guess is what you call it. And I've never driven anything bigger than SUV. And so when I reserved it, I specifically called the people at the parking garage and gave them the schematics of the van and said, this will fit in the garage, correct? And they said, no problem. So I'm probably going to get a big back charge after telling this story, but so I've never been to Chicago. And so we are going to the largest convention center in the country. So I made sure I wanted to stay on premise at the Marriott, parking garage across the street. We drive up, and this is my brand manager and we get there, pulling into the garage, and all of a sudden, crash, the van stops. It's too tall. So she starts to get out to look, and I stop her. I'm like, nope, I don't want to know. This is not how we're starting this week at all. And so I was able to get the van out and I called them and I said, look, where are we supposed to park? And they're like, oh, we just need to go on the back side of the convention center. And there's a lot back here and da, 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 da. Took us about 45 minutes to find this said lot. And at this time it's getting dark. And so here are two girls with their luggage going into like the backside underbelly of this ginormous convention center. And luckily we find a door open. It's like in the basement of the basement of the basement. And all you see are like the security lights that come on at night. And it's this crazy maze of like hallways and escalators. And we have no idea where we're going. And we're literally having to get onto the other side of the convention center. So we keep meandering, and slowly after about 40 minutes, we wind up on the showroom floor of our event. And it's just security people. And they're like, where did you guys come from? And we're like, we're just trying to find the Marriott. So we finally find it. And it was really interesting. We get to the Marriott and I hear all this commotion down in the lobby bar. And I look at her and I said, that's a pharma convention. I know it from a mile away. And sure enough, we went down to have a drink to calm all this mess. And it was a pharma convention. And I was like, how serendipitous is this that I'm here to like debut my product and I know what all these people have in store for them for the week. So it was kind of it was a crazy way to start the week, but a really cool one. So and it was a great week. I loved it. So, and the white carpet turned out to be a good choice.
That's a cool story.
Yeah, it's fun.
Not that you crashed, but just sort of how all that happened. And then the pharmaceutical thing, yeah, once again, in my mind, the no coincidence. And going a little bit further with that, you know, I'm a big believer in the spirit world, and angels are watching over us. And you've talked a lot about seeing angels, and I love that. Please share about the experiences that you've had and all the images that you have in your phone too.
So I kind of began a manifestation journey about 2.5 years ago. I just was really unhappy, and I was waking up sad every day. And I just thought, you know, this is just not the life I'm supposed to be living. And this was right before the pandemic hit. So it wasn't a pandemic thing. I mean, this was before that. And just my life personally and professionally was not where I wanted it to be. And so I just decided to just really start kind of manifesting a new life for myself. And as I delved into that more, I kind of was introduced to a woman who's really in touch with her angels and wanted to, and as a kind of a leader in teaching about the whole spirit angel world. And so I did some of her workshops, and I really started tapping into talking to my angels and giving them gratitude and thanking them and asking them for help and guidance. And when things were really low, and that was through pandemic and then post-pandemic, my job had gotten very, very stressful. And there were times when I wasn't really sure how much longer I could last and last with this business not taking over. And my daughter actually took a really pretty picture inside the Crosstown concourse at the holidays, and it's looking up into the atrium of the lights. And it's a beautiful picture. I still have it as my screensaver. And I kept it as my screensaver. And for whatever reason, you know, I started, and I can correlate it back to when things started getting bad with my job, or I'd have a really bad day. I would start getting a lot of sequences, and I'm a big believer in sequence in numbers. And so I would start getting, this 111s, these 222s, these 1111s, they would really start coming. And once I started like out loud questioning them to myself, they started coming in droves and droves and more and more and more and more. And it was never like okay, it's 110, I'm going to watch the clock until it's 111. I mean, it would really literally be just a happenstance coincidence that they would pop up. And so I would start screenshotting them as kind of a way to remind me that I wasn't alone in this journey. And, if you do any research on seeing sequences and numbers, the predominant one that I saw was the sequences of one. And that's typically, it's going to be them telling you, like, you keep going, we got you, you're on the right path, just go, just keep going, you're not alone, and we know that where you want to go, and we're helping you get there. And so it's been a really, I've kind of even elevated it from that to more of, I actually kind of sit down with them and I try to meditate for a few minutes every day, just to kind of ask them what I'm looking for, but also give gratitude, because gratitude is the key of manifestations. It's really being thankful and blessed for what you have. And when you can get to that state where you're able to thank anyone and everyone, both physically and spiritually, it's those things start coming at you faster. I've watched that happen just in the last 2-3 weeks. I'm getting contacted by companies that I never thought in my wildest dreams would already at this phase be seeking me out. And I know that's because I'm on this path. And so people think I'm crazy, but you know what? I don't care. I love it. I haven't had a bad parking spot in over a year. And I always say thank you, angels, when I get one.
Believe it or not, I see the number 11 all the time.
Yeah.
I was born on 6/11. My
I'm a
dad was born
12/12.
on, you were what?
I'm a 12/12.
My dad was 9/11. My grandfather was 12/11. This past Sunday was 9/11. And I was in a online loyalty to your soul seminar all weekend. And we talked about living an authentic life. A lot of that was talked about. The first breakout session that I was in, there were about 150 people in this Zoom seminar. The first breakout group that I was in out of about 50 that could have been is just shuffled where you go to, number 11. The first handout that we talked about, handout number 11. So once again, those numbers, and I see it all the time and have since
They'll
my father
show up.
passed.
Yep. Oh, yep. Okay. Well, then that's him.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
And
him.
I've had a few readings from Shar Margolis, who's a big psychic medium to a lot of the stars. And she was on Regis and Kelly years ago. And I've had things, I mean, there's things that she told me. And I know people that don't believe in this will think, it's a crock, but I don't care, because I know for a fact it's true.
Same.
Because
Same.
things that she told me, there was no possible way that she knew.
Yeah.
And it came through. I mean, my Facebook was private at the time. You couldn't get into it. I mean, even if you Googled me, you couldn't find this information. So I'm 100% there with you. Our angels are with us.
Yeah.
The spirit world's around us, and the energy and soul never dies.
It never does. And I actually had a reading about 3 weeks ago, a virtual one, and she, again, same. And I wish I could have been there to take a picture of the cards, because it literally played out my entire journey. And I mean, without even knowing, and she knew nothing about me, nothing. And so it is 100%. And I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful. I have to be careful with talking about it too much, because again, people do think sometimes.
Yeah, I know.
But I don't mind, because they bring me so much comfort. And this is my journey, just like it's yours. And if that's what works for you, then I feel blessed. I feel so blessed to feel so much comfort, and knowing that, and it brought me a lot of comfort knowing that I wasn't alone. Like we are never alone.
Right.
And when you can kind of accept that and embrace it, you really can kind of do anything if you really, really want to. I'm a living example of a single mom who did not have a rich ex-husband or a trust fund, and just never gave up. And here I am, so you can do hard things, that's another mantra of mine. I can do hard things. That was my mantra last year. So, so yeah, I love it. And it makes me feel like I'm a more fulfilled person, and that my journey is more fulfilled because of it.
Same here. So I'm right there with you. So, quote, from a snaggletooth kindergartner to a beautiful 8th grade graduate, you have given me so much joy. I can't wait for our summer of travel and the beautiful memories this life is about to gift us. Buckle up, girlfriend. Love you, and I'm so proud of you. Tell us about your beautiful 14-year-old daughter, Sophie.
Oh gosh, she's just blossomed into one of the most incredibly amazing individuals that I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. We've been two little partners in crime since she was 2, and we've been through a lot together. She's seen me go through some less than stellar relationships, and we actually, pretty personal, but we're both open to talking about it. She was a aspiring training to be classical ballerina. Last year, she had transferred to Ballet Memphis, and she's a very determined individual. No matter what she puts her mind to, and whatever she does, she'll succeed at. And she was no different in the ballet world. And I was actually supposed to launch Bevee last year, and we had some hangups that were out of my control that caused us to delay it. And for somebody who's been trying to do this for 7 years now, 6 years last year, it was very heartbreaking for me to have to pause everything. But I now know why. My daughter ended up, combination of social media influences, and as far as the competition of the ballet world, she developed an eating disorder. And I was devastated, and it hit very quickly, as it does. But me being the mom that I am, I said, we're not doing this. And so I, got her treatment as fast as I humanly possibly could. And it was she was, by the time I got her to Le Bonheur, she was about 2 weeks away from the hospital. And, and it will be a foundation that we start one day, because it's a condition that is so dangerous and so deadly. And if you don't hit it head on in the very beginnings, the odds of recovering from it are very, very slim. And a lot of parents don't want to. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to acknowledge it. They don't, and the reality is that, social media is not going anywhere, but they did contribute, and it's one of those things where I don't expect them to go away, but I'd love to see them be part of the solution, because, there was only one place in Memphis I could send her, and it was very expensive. And, the first day was heartbreaking. And, I picked her up, and she was bawling, crying, saying, begging me, please do not make me go back. And, I'm sitting here going, am I ruining her life, or am I saving her life? And I just looked at her, I actually asked my angels, said, give me something to tell her. And I just said, do you trust me? And she said, yes. And I said, okay, you don't have to trust me, or you don't have to believe me, but I need you to trust me. And so she was there outpatient for about 3 months, and we quit ballet the next day because she realized that she was still not eating. And at the end of the 3 months, it was like a whole different person walked out of there. And she wrote me this beautiful letter, and she just said, I will never forget that you're the person who saved my life. And, and she started writing, and she's, as beautiful of a dancer as she was, her writing is so incredibly inspiring and amazing. And, I feel so blessed that was not meant to be her journey. It would have been a really, really hard journey. Right. And I love the fact that she has I'm glad to leave middle school, but but she has just blossomed into just the person that she's supposed to be. And, and it's interesting where you can see hardships like that, or stops in making a product. If I had tried to launch Bevee and try to help her, they both would have suffered. Right. And so, I was meant to pause my life so I could focus on her. And I couldn't be more happy with her. She's straight A's. She's got big ambitions to go to a big writing school. And I know her, and I know her well enough to know that she'll probably going to do it. So she's great. And it just goes to show you that sometimes when a door closes on one path that you think you're on, it's because you weren't meant to go down that path. And I think the only thing that would have stopped her from dancing is something like this, because she loved it so much. But it's, and again, you just never know when, like, I mean, in 2010, when I got divorced and had to like pick myself up by my bootstraps, if you'd told me, oh yeah, in 5 years you're going to start developing a brand, I would have said, yeah, no. So, I mean, life has this way of surprising you. I actually have an alarm that goes off in my phone every day at 11:11 now, and it just says visualize or better. And I focus on the or better part, because I'm finding that life has this wonderful way of surprising you with something better.
I saw 11:11 last night. Just, randomly. It's, once again, it's not randomly. It's I looked at my
Right.
computer screen in the bottom right hand corner. It was 11:11,
Yep.
and once
Yeah.
again, see that all the time. And I had a feeling when you told me that you had a couple of foundations that you wanted to start in the future, that this, what you're just talking about, was probably one of them, because I'd read about
Yeah.
that with her.
Yeah.
So I had a
Yeah.
feeling that was probably one, because I could tell, obviously how important that is to you.
It's very important. And I think it's one of these, I think part of the problem with that particular disease is that there's just not a lot of knowledge about it and a lot of understanding. And, I was fortunate to go through a specialist at Le Bonheur, who's people come from all over the country to see, and she was really able to educate me. And, there should be an education. This is a stoppable, treatable condition, but there's such a stigma about it that, oh, it's a mental illness, I don't want to talk about it. My child doesn't have that. And I'm like, well, there's a really good chance they do if the symptoms and signs are there. And, and I watched it. I watched my child become something different. And, I think with more education and more talking about it, this could be something that doesn't have to be what it is today. There's not many of me's running around who would have just dropped everything and did the hard thing, so I hope one day that this is not, we're not still sitting here talking about this, or having to deal with, innocent children who are suffering unnecessarily.
One more quote I want to read that you said about her. You said, quote, "You never stop inspiring me. You never stop making me laugh, and you never gave up. Go summit your mountain. You've shown yourself you can. Love you, my angel." That girl obviously is going to persevere, and she's going to make it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, she's a wonderful human being, and she's got such a beautiful spirit. And, I've told her many, many times, that she's a product of me. And, and she's had to and gotten to see me live through things and work through them. And, I'm blessed that I can be in her presence, and I'm blessed that I can help, encourage and influence her, much like any other female that encounters my life, so
You're
she's a
one
good one.
proud mom.
I am.
That's great.
Thank you.
What are the most important lessons you've learned in life?
I think that it's important to live a life of gratitude. I think it's important to live a life of purpose. I think it's important to live a life of serving. And I think that all of that can be done in a way that, your journey is fulfilling you. And, I knew that I was not on the right path many times. I knew that I wasn't, I knew I wasn't meant to be a stay-at-home housewife. That was a hard decision. I knew I wasn't meant to be in corporate America. That was a hard decision. I knew that through experiences, I was not living my authentic life. And so I think, but they all also helped shape and form me as to who I am today. And, I think it's not, and it's never too late. I would have loved to have started this journey in my mid 20s or early 30s. I'd love for that to happen, but it's just not how it worked out. So, I think it's really important for people to know that if they're not happy or satisfied or content, that then do something different. And if you don't know what that is, which I encounter a lot from people, I want to do something different. I just don't know what. Okay, then don't skip the first step. The first step is being open to what that is coming to you. And that's what most people forget, is that they need to be like open to letting whatever that is that would put them on their path to come their way. It may take a year, it may take 5, but there's a guy that I love his book and I follow him a lot. His name's Mike Dooley, and he writes a book called Infinite Possibilities, and you should definitely read it. But he said when it comes to changing your life, he said it's almost like asking a jumbo jet to do a 180 in the air. This jet's going 700 miles an hour. It can't just suddenly turn around and start going the other direction.
Right.
So a lot of things have to happen and things have to clear out and make room so that your life can do that. And, and I think that's also a big lesson, is to remember, like, just because nothing's happening, oh, there's a lot happening. There's a lot happening, but a lot of it's going to take time, especially for the big changes, which is what I've set out to do. So
how can people find you and Bevee on social media and get a hold of you if they're interested in learning more about it and purchasing some?
Oh, yeah. Well, so the website's bevee.com. Very easy. And we have all the links on that website to all of our social medias. Most of them are going to be Bevee Carrier, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. Am I forgetting any? I don't think so. Yeah, we're pretty easy to find. So, and our email is easy. You can email me or our company. It's Natalie@bevee.com or info@bevee.com. So we're pretty easy to get in touch with. So, but yeah, we'd love for you guys to jump on board and join the fun. So
I'm really excited for you, Natalie. What an incredible invention you've developed, and you have so many wonderful things ahead of you, for you and for Sophie too. And I know you're extremely busy right now, so I really appreciate you, taking the time to come on today and share this with us. And I'd love to have you on again down the road to hear all about the success that I know that you're going to have sometime.
I'd love that. Thank you. This is so fun. I enjoyed it.
Thanks for coming on today.